Today we are going to be continuing the conversation of wellness design. And for those of you who have been on this journey with us, we covered the 4 dimensions of the Resonant Framework as crucial to achieving well-being in your home, in your work environments, in the spaces you live, work, and breathe in. And we talked about how important it is to follow this aspect and to, if you are somebody who loves design and you are somebody who loves wellness, we're marrying those two in this podcast. And so we're talking about interior design, and we're talking about wellness, and we're talking about making dreams come true. Now, aren't we, Valerie Putman?
We sure are.
And, so that was, if you've missed it, listeners, please go back and listen to, the episodes about the Resonant Framework, because that's the foundation of creating wellness at home. That's simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, but we are not done.
Of course not.
One would think we were done with the diamond, but there's a center part, right? So we had, in the Resonant Framework, we had the identity, the rituals and the behaviors. We had the connection, and then the how of how we bring it all together. So those are the 4 sort of dimensions of the Resonant Framework, but there's a center to it. And that is the why. And that's how you make dreams come true.
Yeah.
We talked about in the last episode is design sort of being a funnel. For us, we have a very process-driven system for creating well-being and great design through this sort of funnel. At the top of the funnel is sort of this discovery, when we're talking about process. So, when you're planning for a project, your why is crucial, right? Why are you doing this? Why are you building a home? Why are you remodeling your home? Why are you renovating your business? Why are you renovating your bathroom or your bedroom? And so understanding your why is crucial. But the challenge here, and this is where we're going to go deep, is the unspoken why. Because, listen, we're not going to talk superficial here, meaning your superficial why doesn't matter to me. We're all about authenticity, right? Yeah. We're all about authenticity. And so it could start with some superficiality, meaning, you find a Pinterest picture and you want your space to look like that. But there's an unspoken why. Like, how do you want that space to make you feel? How do you want this space to reflect who you want to become? What is the depth and the breadth of what you really want to accomplish? Because it's that unspoken why, I will tell you right now, that think about it. When you think about your why, it's when you start to feel that you'll know you've hit it. Because your why has to do with the inside. We design from the inside out when we're creating well-being through design. So that's the big takeaway. We're designing from the inside, which is here in the heart, out to create design. So when you start to feel your why, you will know how to accomplish great design. And that is sort of the core of how we take this sort of large funnel and chisel away at it, with your why being part of every aspect of those design decisions, those questions, those answers, those materials, those finishes, those colors, that layout, all should resonate your why.
I love that. That's so well said, Michele. And I think, when you think about there actually are a lot of different types of whys, and I know we're going to be talking about that today, but for me, as I was kind of preparing for today and thinking about, well, what are these reasons? What is the deeper meaning? How do you make that connection? There was, even just this underlying thought that, to me, like in some ways, whether it is at surface level at first, that's where there's actually more to it, because it's never just about the surface level.
It's a sign.
It's a sign.
It's a sign.
That there's
if you're looking
more.
at the surface, that's a good sign to know that you need to go deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think through kind of each of these different types of whys, because there could be different stages of your life, right? These circumstantial whys. We have on the surface level, the superficial whys, but it's only when we get a little bit deeper with, even understanding what our aspirations are and those type of whys. But I think all of those all together, along with the unspoken why, really there's room for all of those kind of elements as you kind of figure things out. Like there's, there could be multiple of those whys, but at the end of the day, they're all coming together for that true, deeper meaning and emotional response to really, like, what the heck am I, what am I doing here? If I'm remodeling and going to spend, $30,000 or $100,000, like, really, how am I going to really get out of this what I really need, what I need, out of that,
Exactly.
what my family needs. So I think really good conversation.
Really good conversation. You're exactly right. I think we could almost define it as your central truth, right?
Yeah.
So if you have your sort of your circumstantial why, that could be you're downsizing, right? So you're buying a smaller home and it's more about quality over quantity. You're downsizing, or maybe you're just starting a family, right? So you're building a new home to build a family, to grow a family, to plant roots, right? That's a little bit circumstantial. So we all have usually some level of circumstantial influence as to what's going on in our why. And that's important. That's part of the central truth, what you're describing,
absolutely.
Right? There's the, the superficial why, like, I have to have this home, it sort of shows where I am in my career, it's sort of like a statement of who you are. And that's great and that's fine. But I think there's more to it. I think the superficial why is something to talk about. The superficial why is, if you want to just keep up with the Joneses, okay, there's something deeper than that. Maybe it's more about belonging.
Yeah, absolutely.
And fitting in.
Yes.
Than it is about, this superficiality of just, wanting the bigger house. But, it's more about fitting in and belonging. And so maybe it's about creating a design that really focuses on connection, because at the end of the day, is that really what's inside of you that's driving this, wanting of this, particular home style or design, but remember too, we talked about the who. So we want to make sure that, you are looking at who you are, what drives you, what colors you love, what styles you love, so we do need to look to the superficiality, and then the circumstantial, which, why are you doing this? What sort of life events are happening that is triggering the circumstantial why? And then there's the aspirational why too. It's like, you need to look at the aspirational why of who you want to become. Maybe you're in a place that you don't want to be, and you want to be in a different place, a better place. You're wanting to focus on health and wellness. You're wanting to focus on building a family. And so, that aspirational why is something that needs to be part of that central truth. And then there's that deeper aspect. It's the feeling part, which is the unspoken why. They all go together to be, to bring together essential truth. Valerie, at the heart of every design is a deeper reason for being.
Absolutely.
How do we get there? Tell our listeners, what are some of the questions that we need to be asking to discover that deeper level of being to accomplish their why, so that we can be successful with their design, and that they can be successful, that they can yield a successful result by really uncovering their why. How do we do that?
Wow, that's a lot, right?
It is a lot
to try to kind of get to that point. But I think, some of the best ways are really even just to start with, a lot of times people will go to look at like a Pinterest or, have visual images that kind of are inspiring to them, those sorts of things. But I think if you start to go down that path, right then you need to be kind of cataloging, well, what is it about this? Why do I like this space? Or what is it about the idea of this that maybe is going to yield me a different, result in my own space? Does it foster more connection? Does it foster really who I am as a person,
or who you want to be?
And is there what things are actually like really important to you, just at the very core of who you are? Like, what is it that's really, really important to you, on a daily basis that maybe your current environment just isn't giving you? And I think it's in those kind of hard looks at like, what is it that I'm missing? That sometimes that's easier to see.
Yes.
Than always necessarily just saying, oh, well, I want this. I have it all planned out in my head, because usually your plan isn't necessarily always aligned with your heart in that same way.
No, I love that. That is so true, because maybe it's not even necessarily circumstantial. Maybe, to your point, that's the question.
Yeah.
Right there. What am I missing?
Yeah.
If you're thinking about remodeling your space, or you want to make a change, let's say you just want to make a change, it could just be, what am I missing? And maybe even it is that well-being. What is well-being? It's, so it's emotional, it's physical, it's human connection. It's about feeling good. It's about feeling confident. It's about a space resonating who you are as a person. And so that could simply be the why. It's missing the who.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe it could be, not circumstantial, but it's just, the space is not functioning correctly. So now we're sort of, tapping back into the second dimension of the resonant framework, is sort of the rituals and the behaviors. But maybe it's not working. What are we missing?
Yeah.
That is the key, Valerie, to really discovering your why. Or one way to discover your why is through, when you ask yourself, why, what am I missing?
Yeah.
What's not working? Is this reflecting who I am? Am I missing connection? Do I want more belonging? Do I want to fit in? Do I want to feel better? Am I depressed? It doesn't have to be a life, change or circumstances that can really push you to understand your why. And it's through the why that we discover our essential truth. And the truth will set you free in design, right?
Love that.
Because and for us, I have found, Valerie, that the more we can resonate better with our clients when we understand their true whys. It could be, I think about
Really good point.
right?
Yeah.
I think about a client who, okay, I almost got emotional thinking about them, and they came to us and they were having, they came to us with a sad story. They had lost a business partner and they were just sort of felt a little demoralized, and, there was competition opening up around them. And, I could just sense that they needed something to lift them up, meaning they wanted to almost reinvent themselves to really represent who they were at their heart, which was, and this is a business, right? And I resonated so much with what they were telling me that it was the driving force behind the design. When we know your central truth, when you know your central truth, it's you now have a driver. You have something pushing you to the end result. I think there's something always that drives us, personally, and it could be a past hurt. It could be, something we aspire to be, and it's through that discovery that allows us to be the driving force to become a better person, to become who we should be, to attain well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't that, you're just talking about all this, it's growth, right? We grow as humans to, kind of that next level, that next stage in life, that next whatever's next, right? There's always growth. And I think design can be a catalyst to support your growth, whatever that is.
Oh my gosh, I love that, Valerie.
And support healing and support, this is what we're talking about with wellness and design and the power of design.
Oh my gosh, Valerie, I absolutely love that. In even thinking about growth, that's such, we're thinking, that really touches on this aspirational, but we're always, and I think that is part of well-being, is we're always growing, who we are. We talked about this in another, episode of, the space to be well. We were talking about, our child, who we were in our 20s, and when we were thinking about design and what that means to your, 40-year-old self who is now in a completely different place. And you see, just by looking back, how your style choices have changed. That's because you've grown and you've matured. And I think has a lot to do with who your true self is, and has a lot to do with your central truth, because I really believe that the more we focus on our central truth, we're going to design a space that stands the test of time. And that's something that we've talked to, all of our clients, so many of them, they come to us because they want to yield a good return on the investment. They want a timeless space, but a timeless space is rooted in truth. And when you focus on that truth and you focus on who you are and you focus on the real meaning and depth, you create a space, because you're more tapped into that stands the test of time and really becomes very timeless, and you can live with it for longer, right?
Absolutely.
Instead of outgrowing something, that could just be a sign that you're growing.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. I feel like, I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but I know personally that I have, that, sometimes I have that itch for change, like something just needs to change, whether that's my environment, a lot of times, or whether, I don't know, there's something, it just feels like I can just feel it, right? And a lot of times I do feel like, well, that's where I'm growing. There's something happening, and I welcome the change in that regard, because I feel like whenever you listen to that, it gets you to that next kind of stage, and whatever that is, wherever life takes you in that regard.
I love that. So it's a little bit intuitive too.
Yeah.
So, it's not even just looking at what I'm missing, what are my life circumstances, but maybe it's just that that yearning, or that little bit of intuition that is prodding you to grow and to
Yeah.
change,
Yeah.
and that, or even ready for this, to be prepared for change.
Yeah.
Something's coming,
Yes.
right? It's
Yes.
that feeling like life is going to change, and that you're sort of tapping into that instinct of change coming, and it
Yeah.
could be life changing. And then it becomes circumstantial. So you want to tap into those truths so you're not blown away by those life changes. You're prepared for
Right.
life
Yeah.
changes, and so the more we're focused on our inner truth, again, designing from the inside out, we're more prepared. And that is why we keep saying how important the space is and how important design is, because it reflects the emotion of what's going on in your world.
Mm.
And maybe that's change. And that is, it's telling you, we need to be ready. It's helping you and sort of holding your hand. We talked about design as a therapist,
Yeah.
and your space is even like a therapist. Your space talks to you. It holds this emotional quality of your life, and whether it's the pictures on the wall, or the art, or the layout, or the design, or the colors, or the finishes, your design will speak to you and tell you where you need to be and where you need to go. You need to pay attention to it.
I love that.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Stop and smell the roses.
Stop and smell the roses. Exactly. So we're talking about designing from the inside out. I think that you could also, our listeners can think about this more by room versus just big picture, right? So I think that maybe you need to go stand in your foyer and think about your why, right? You know what I mean?
True.
It's like, I need to do that. I need to stand in my foyer and think about my why, in the midst of the boxes everywhere from a ridiculous amount of deliveries that we get at the house. So my why is, when I come home, I want to clear my head of all the noise that's happening, at the office, or, throughout the day. When you walk into your foyer, this is a place to provide that transport, or that, providing that idea of transformation, and the shedding, and the releasing, and the letting go of the outside noise, and coming home to a place where I feel relaxed and refreshed. And so my why in my foyer is that. And so based on understanding that, I think it will allow us to make decisions about what we need to do in terms of a design to really allow that why to resonate and to come to life, right? So if I'm wanting to feel that transformation, something that I'm just going to have to do is, and I've been planning for a remodel of my foyer for quite some time, is I really need to think about stocking and receiving,
Yeah.
that needs to be, now we're getting into the ritual and behavior aspect, but that allows us to go to the ritual and behavioral aspect of creating a design, because we understand the truth. And that truth allows us to dig deeper into the behavioral aspect of that, and even who I am as a person, right? I think first impressions matter.
Yeah.
And I think first
absolutely.
impressions are crucial. I mean, I think we can apply this to any room, don't you think?
Absolutely. Yeah. Another great example of that would be, maybe your bedroom, or your primary suite, or even your closet. How, when you want to end or start your day in the best way possible, do you have clothes everywhere? Is it chaos? Is it not allowing you to really get to the place where you're really feeling like, I can have a restful night of sleep and I can be the best version of myself? And I think understanding what it is that we really need out of out of the space what your truth is about that, will allow you to really, again, make the best decisions possible with that.
Right. It's like calm versus chaos.
Yeah.
Right. And so the why is, is that you want to feel rejuvenated in the morning. You want to feel restful at night. And it's important to be on your game because, you're starting a new business or you're entering into a new relationship or there's something in your life that's happening. And at the end of the day, this is all about well-being and transformation and wellness.
Yeah.
And so by, even looking at your why room by room, I think is a way to understanding your central truth. So listeners, this is so important. We talked about the resonant framework but the center point of that is your why and your central truth. And many times that's unspoken. And I say, when you start asking your why and you're starting to feel something, you've hit that why.
Yeah.
And that's where the real work begins. It's like a therapist,
Yeah.
right? That's where your therapist can start doing the work, your designer,
Yeah.
to create a place that's truly transformational and reflects, true well-being and helps you to get to that place of wellness.
Yeah, absolutely.
So listeners, drop us a line. Let us know what you think. What is your why? We'd love to hear from you. And, continue joining us on this journey. This first season, we're halfway through the first season now. In the first part of the season, we talked about the resonant framework, really helping you to understand that wellness design is a philosophy. It's not a style. It's how we achieve well-being through design. The second half of the season, we're going to talk about some fun things as it relates to wellness design and this philosophy. Next week, we're going to talk about a really fun subject, and that's luxury. So we are going to be talking about luxury and wellness and why they work together. So if you love this aspect of luxury, wellness, and design, be sure to join us.